12 Deep Regrets Elderly People Share on Their Deathbeds. As we journey through life, it's natural to reflect on the choices we've made. For many elderly individuals, especially those in their final stages of life, this reflection often brings clarity about what truly mattered and what they wish they had done differently. By learning from their regrets, we can embrace the wisdom they offer and make more meaningful choices in our own lives. Here are 12 deep regrets elderly people commonly share on their deathbeds and lessons we can take to heart.
If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. 1. Being a people pleaser. As the years pass and life nears its end, many elderly individuals reflect on how much of their time was spent bending to the will of others. They recall the countless moments when they said yes despite wanting to say no, how they compromised their own desires to avoid conflict, or how they put aside their dreams to meet expectations that were never truly their own. For some, this began as a habit early in life, an eagerness to be liked, to fit in, or to avoid disappointing loved ones. Over time, it became a way of life. Decisions big and small were shaped not by their own aspirations, but by the need to please parents, partners, children, bosses, or even societal norms. They often look back and see how this pattern stripped them of opportunities to pursue their passions, voice their true opinions, or set boundaries that would have protected their well-being. One regret that lingers is the realization of how fleeting approval from others often was. They worked tirelessly to earn it, only to find it was temporary and, at times, unnoticed. They sacrificed their own comfort, mental health, and happiness for validation that rarely came, or, when it did, wasn't as fulfilling as they had hoped. They see now how striving to meet the expectations of others can lead to a life that feels borrowed rather than truly lived. Perhaps the most painful realization is how people-pleasing robbed them of authenticity. By constantly conforming to the wishes of others, they lost touch with their own identity. Who were they really? What did they truly want? These questions often surface too late, when the energy and time to explore them have already dwindled. Being a people pleaser doesn't mean they didn't care about others. On the contrary, many of these individuals were deeply compassionate and empathetic, but the regret comes from realizing that their kindness often came at a personal cost. They didn't leave enough room for themselves, their dreams, or their voice in the grand story of their lives. Looking back, they wish they had been braver to stand up for themselves, to say no without guilt, and to prioritize their own happiness. They recognize that a life lived for others isn't truly lived at all, and the moments they cherished most were the ones when they followed their own path, no matter how small or fleeting those moments might have been. 2. Worrying too much about the future. For many elderly individuals, the burden of constant worry about the future feels like a weight they carried unnecessarily for much of their lives. They recall endless nights spent overthinking scenarios that never happened, fretting over finances that turned out fine, or obsessing about outcomes that were ultimately out of their control. This cycle of worry often robbed them of the simple joys of the present, moments that they now long to reclaim. They remember how worry crept into their happiest times, a family gathering clouded by concerns about work deadlines, a vacation tainted by anxiety about bills, or the quiet unease that accompanied every major life decision. They realize now that so much of what they feared never materialized, and even the hardships they did face were often not as insurmountable as they once imagined. Time and resilience proved they could handle more than they gave themselves credit for. The regret isn't just about the wasted energy, but about the opportunities they missed by living in their minds rather than the moment. The laughter they didn't fully enjoy, the hugs they didn't linger in, the beauty of an ordinary day that went unnoticed. all these memories are tinged with the realization of how fleeting life is and how much worry distracted them from its fullness. Now, they often reflect on how futile it was to try to control an unknowable future. They see how the constant need for certainty led them to delay decisions, postpone happiness, or hold back from taking risks that might have brought great rewards. Instead of savoring what they had, they allowed fear of the unknown to steal time they could never get back. In their later years, the clarity comes. The future will unfold as it will, regardless of how much time we spend fearing it. Looking back, they wish they had trusted more, trusted themselves to handle challenges, trusted their loved ones to support them, and trusted life to unfold in its own imperfect way. Worry, they now understand, solves nothing but takes so much in return. 3. Working too much. Among the most poignant regrets expressed by elderly individuals is the realization that they spent far too much of their lives working. They recall long hours at the office, missed dinners with family, and milestones in their children's lives that passed them by while they were stuck in meetings or chasing promotions. The drive to provide and succeed often came at a cost they didn't fully grasp until it was too late. They think of the birthdays they couldn't attend, the vacations that were cut short, and the evenings when their loved ones waited for them at the dinner table, only to go to bed disappointed. The memories they missed can never be replaced, and the sacrifices they made for their careers now feel hollow in comparison to what they lost. The regret isn't just about lost time with family, but also about how work consumed so much of their identity. For decades, their worth felt tied to their job titles, salaries, or professional achievements. They now see how this narrow focus often left little room for self-reflection, personal growth, or simply enjoying life for what it is, not what it produces. They wonder how things might have been different if they had spent more time pursuing passions, building relationships, or simply being present. Even the financial stability they worked so hard to secure sometimes feels bittersweet. While they provided for their families and ensured a comfortable retirement, they often ask themselves, was it worth the price? The answer, for many, is no. Not when they consider the memories they forfeited and the relationships they allowed to weaken in the pursuit of work. As they reflect, they wish they had seen sooner what truly mattered. Success, they now understand, isn't measured in hours worked or accolades earned, but in the love you share, the experiences you create, and the moments you fully embrace. Looking back, they see that life was never about the paycheck or the corner office. It was about the people waiting for them to come home.
4. Giving up on passions. Many elderly individuals look back on their lives with a deep sense of loss for the passions they once held but allowed to fade. They recall the hobbies that once brought them joy, the dreams they had as young adults, and the interests that made them feel alive. Somewhere along the way, amid the demands of work, family, and societal expectations, they set those passions aside, promising themselves they would return to them someday. For many, that someday never came. They remember how their eyes lit up when they played an instrument, wrote poetry, painted, or tinkered with a hobby that sparked creativity. Those moments felt like freedom, a way to express their true selves in a world that often demanded conformity. But over time, they told themselves these pursuits weren't practical, important, or worth the time. I'll do it later, they thought. Later turned into never. What hurts the most isn't just the loss of the activity itself, but the loss of what it represented, an outlet for joy, a way to connect with their inner child, and a reminder of their individuality. They realize now that their passions weren't trivial, they were vital. Those creative endeavors could have provided balance, a refuge from stress, and a sense of purpose outside of daily obligations. As they reflect, they often wish they had nurtured those passions, even if only a little. They see now that they didn't have to be the best at their craft or turn their hobbies into achievements. The simple act of doing what they loved would have been enough. Whether it was dancing, gardening, writing, or learning something new, those activities were opportunities to enrich their lives in ways they now miss profoundly. Their regret isn't just for themselves, but also for what they could have shared with others. They think about how their children or grandchildren might have been inspired by watching them pursue their passions. They imagine the joy they could have brought to their families by sharing their talents or simply showing what it looks like to live authentically. In their quiet moments, they mourn not just the time lost, but the parts of themselves they left behind. They now see that their passions were never a luxury. They were a necessity for a full, meaningful life.
5. Not looking after themselves. As they reflect on their lives, many elderly individuals regret the ways they neglected their health and well-being. They remember the late nights spent working instead of resting, the fast food eaten in the rush of daily life, and the excuses they made to avoid exercising. At the time, these choices seemed small, even inconsequential, but over the years, they compounded into chronic illnesses, diminished mobility, and a quality of life that feels far below what it could have been. They think about how often they put themselves last, they prioritize their families, their careers, and the endless demands of daily life, convincing themselves there was no time to take care of their own needs. Regular checkups were skipped, warning signs ignored, and self-care dismissed as indulgent or selfish. Now, they face the consequences of those choices. Aches and pains that won't go away, medications they rely on daily, and the sobering realization that much of it could have been prevented. It's not just physical health that was neglected, but mental and emotional well-being too. They recall times when they pushed through stress without addressing it, when they didn't ask for help because they didn't want to seem weak, and when they ignored feelings of sadness or anxiety, hoping they would simply pass. Over the years, the emotional toll accumulated, leaving them wishing they had sought support sooner. The regret runs deeper than the health issues themselves. They mourn the opportunities they missed because they didn't feel well enough to seize them. Trips left untaken, activities they loved but could no longer do, and time with loved ones that was cut short by illness. All these losses weigh heavily on their hearts. They wonder how different their lives might have been if they had prioritized their health, if they had treated their bodies with care and their minds with compassion. Now, they understand that health isn't just about adding years to life, it's about adding life to those years. They wish they had made different choices, not out of vanity or fear, but out of love for themselves and the people who relied on them. They see now that taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's the foundation for a long, vibrant, and meaningful life.
6. Staying in the comfort zone. As they look back on their lives, many elderly individuals regret how often they chose safety over adventure, predictability over growth. The comfort zone, with its reassuring familiarity, became a space they rarely left, a bubble that felt secure but ultimately limited. They now see how much of life they missed by clinging to routines and avoiding risks. They recall opportunities that passed them by, a chance to change careers, move to a new city, or take on a challenge that seemed daunting at the time. Fear of failure, rejection, or discomfort held them back. They worried about making mistakes or looking foolish, so they stayed where they felt safe. Yet now, they recognize that the greatest risk wasn't in trying and failing. It was in never trying at all. This regret often feels bittersweet. While the comfort zone offered peace in the moment, it also came at a cost. They reflect on how staying put kept them from meeting new people, experiencing different cultures, or discovering hidden talents. The what-ifs echo loudly in their minds. What if they had been braver, more willing to take that leap, or more open to embracing the unknown? The comfort zone wasn't just about physical spaces or big decisions. It was also about avoiding emotional risks. Many regret not expressing their feelings, not speaking up when it mattered, or not allowing themselves to be vulnerable. They see now that growth and connection often require stepping into discomfort and avoiding it left parts of their lives unfulfilled. As they reflect, they wish they had understood sooner that life is meant to be explored, not simply endured. They think about the adventures they might have had, the lessons they could have learned, and the memories they could have made if only they had taken a chance. The realization is clear now. The comfort zone may feel safe, but it is not where life's richest experiences are found. 7. Not being present for loved ones. Few regrets cut as deeply as the realization that they were not fully present for the people who mattered most. Elderly individuals often reflect on how distracted they were during moments that should have been cherished, times when their loved ones needed their undivided attention, but they were too caught up in work, technology, or their own thoughts to truly be there. They remember the small yet meaningful opportunities they missed. A child asking for help with homework while they answered work emails, a spouse sharing their day while they were lost in their phone, or a friend seeking comfort but finding them too preoccupied to listen. At the time, these moments seemed insignificant or easily postponed, but now they see how those fleeting interactions were the building blocks of connection. The regret isn't just about physical absence, it's about emotional absence. They recall family dinners where their minds were elsewhere, holidays where they went through the motions but didn't fully engage, and milestones they didn't savor because they were too focused on what came next. Now they wish they had looked up, listened more, and immersed themselves in the moments that mattered. What makes this regret especially painful is the understanding that time with loved ones is finite. Children grow up, parents grow old, and friends drift away. The opportunities to share time, laughter, and love don't last forever. They think of the relationships that could have been stronger, the memories that could have been richer, and the love that could have been more deeply felt if only they had been more present. As they reflect, they often wish for one more chance, to hold a grandchild's hand, to listen to a spouse's story without interruption, to call a friend just to say, "I'm thinking of you." They now understand that presence is the greatest gift we can give to those we love. Looking back, they see that life's greatest treasures aren't found in accomplishments or possessions, but in the connections we nurture and the moments we share. 8. Not traveling enough. As they sit and reflect on their lives, many elderly individuals feel a deep pang of regret for the places they never saw and the journeys they never took. They recall years spent saying, "Someday I'll travel there." But that someday was always pushed aside by the busyness of life, the fear of cost, or the belief that there would always be time later. Now, with their bodies no longer as strong and their energy not as boundless, they realize that later has come and gone. They think about the destinations they dreamed of, the natural beauty of national parks, the history of European cities, or even the charm of a nearby town they never explored. These weren't just places. They were opportunities to break free from routine, experience something new, and create memories that would last a lifetime. Instead, they chose familiarity, putting off the chance to see the world for reasons that now feel trivial. The regret isn't only about the sights they missed, but also about the connections they didn't make. Traveling isn't just about destinations, it's about meeting new people, tasting different foods, and broadening one's perspective. They now see how travel could have enriched their understanding of the world and deepened their appreciation for life's diversity. They missed chances to stand in awe of nature, immerse themselves in other cultures, or simply feel the thrill of adventure. More than anything, they mourn the memories they could have shared with loved ones. They think about the trips they could have taken with their children, the adventures they might have shared with a partner, or the stories they could have told their grandchildren about distant lands. Those missed opportunities to bond and create lasting moments weigh heavily on their hearts. As they reflect, they often wish they had prioritized experiences over possessions. Now, they understand that the joy of travel isn't just in seeing new places, but in the personal growth, the relationships, and the stories that come from stepping outside of one's everyday world. The maps they once dreamed of exploring remain untouched, a silent reminder of what might have been.
9. Not resolving arguments. For many elderly individuals, unresolved arguments linger in their minds like unfinished chapters in the story of their lives. They think about the friendships that ended abruptly, the family relationships strained by harsh words, and the love that faded because pride or stubbornness kept them from making amends. These unhealed wounds often weigh heavily in their later years, leaving a bittersweet sense of loss. They recall moments of anger or hurt when it felt easier to walk away than to have a difficult conversation. At the time, they believed the pain would fade or that the other person would eventually reach out first. But now, they see how much time was wasted in silence. Time that could have been spent reconnecting, rebuilding, and sharing life's precious moments. The arguments that once felt so important now seem insignificant compared to the relationships they cost. Regret often deepens when they consider the fragility of life. They think of loved ones who passed away before they had a chance to make things right. There's no longer an opportunity to apologize, to say, "I forgive you," or to hear those words in return. That finality is one of the hardest parts of unresolved conflict, knowing that reconciliation is no longer possible. It isn't just about the loss of others, but also about what it did to themselves. They recognize how holding on to resentment or refusing to forgive took a toll on their own peace of mind. The energy spent reliving arguments or harboring grudges could have been directed toward healing and happiness. They now see how forgiveness, whether given or received, was never about weakness. It was about freedom. As they reflect, they wish they had been braver. Braver to pick up the phone, write a letter, or say the words that might have mended broken bonds. They think about the love they could have shared, the time they could have spent together, and the joy they might have found in forgiveness. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, they see that no argument was worth the loss of connection, and they mourn the relationships that slipped away because of words left unsaid. 10. Deciding to smoke or do drugs. One of the deepest regrets expressed by many elderly individuals is their decision to smoke or use drugs during their lifetime. In their later years, as health challenges become more pronounced, the consequences of these choices often come into sharp focus. They think about the years they spent indulging in these habits, unaware or unwilling to acknowledge the toll it would take on their bodies and lives. For many, smoking started as a social activity, a way to fit in or cope with stress. It felt harmless at first, just a casual act that didn't seem significant. But as time went on, it became a dependency. Now, with lungs weakened by years of tobacco use, or with illnesses like COPD or heart disease, they deeply regret not quitting sooner or not resisting the temptation in the first place. The regret isn't only physical. Many reflect on how these habits affected their loved ones. They think about the money spent on cigarettes or substances that could have been used for their family's well-being or to create cherished memories. They recall the moments their children or grandchildren asked them to quit, only for them to brush off the pleas, thinking there was always more time to change. Now, they realize how their choices may have caused pain, worry, or even set an example they wish they hadn't. For those who turn to drugs, the regret is often intertwined with memories of lost opportunities and broken relationships. They reflect on how addiction may have distanced them from their families or hindered their ability to achieve their goals. The haze of those years looms large, a reminder of time wasted and harm done that cannot be undone. As they look back, They wish they had understood sooner the value of health and the importance of self control. They know now that the momentary relief or pleasure these habits offered was never worth the long term cost. For many, the greatest regret isn't just what these choices took from them, but what they took from those they loved. 11. Trying to impress people. Many elderly individuals look back on their lives and wonder why they spent so much time and energy trying to impress others. They remember how much they cared about what people thought of their appearance, their possessions, or their achievements. At the time, it felt crucial to be admired, respected, or envied. But now, with the clarity of age, they see how shallow and fleeting that kind of validation truly was. They think about the choices they made to appear successful: buying expensive cars, working endless hours to afford a bigger house, or dressing a certain way to project an image. Now, they see those things for what they were: an attempt to win approval from people whose opinions didn't really matter. What stings most is realizing how often these efforts came at the expense of their own happiness or authenticity. They also reflect on the emotional toll of constantly trying to measure up, the stress of striving for perfection, the fear of judgment, and the disappointment when admiration didn't come as expected all seem so trivial now. They wish they had known that true worth isn't found in others' opinions, but in their own sense of self. What makes this regret even harder is the understanding of what they could have done instead. They think about the risks they didn't take because they feared looking foolish, the hobbies they abandoned because they weren't impressive, and the moments they could have enjoyed if they hadn't been so focused on appearances. They realize now that the people who truly mattered, their family, close friends, and loved ones, never cared about those superficial things. What mattered was the love they gave and the authenticity they showed. As they reflect, they feel sadness for the time wasted chasing approval and the joy they might have found by simply being themselves. The clarity now is undeniable. Life was never about impressing others. It was about living fully and authentically. 12. Wasting time chasing the wrong things. In their quiet moments of reflection, many elderly individuals regret how much of their lives were spent chasing the wrong things. They recall years devoted to pursuits that, in hindsight, feel hollow: money, status, or societal approval. At the time, these goals seemed important. They believed that achieving them would bring happiness, security, or fulfillment. But now, they see how misguided those beliefs were. They think about the hours spent working late to earn more, even when they already had enough. They remember striving for promotions that brought more stress than satisfaction. They reflect on relationships neglected, passions ignored, and personal well-being sacrificed in the relentless pursuit of goals that, in the end, didn't truly matter. The regret often stems from realizing what was lost in the process. They see now that the moments of true happiness were simple: a child's laughter, a quiet walk with a loved one, or the satisfaction of doing something they genuinely loved. But those moments were too often overshadowed by the chase, by the belief that success, possessions, or recognition would somehow fill a deeper void. What makes this regret so profound is the realization that the things they truly valued, love, connection, health, and peace, were always within reach. They didn't require wealth or fame, only a shift in perspective. But caught up in the whirlwind of life, they failed to see it until it was too late. As they reflect, they feel the weight of time lost. They wonder how different their lives might have been if they had focused on what truly brought them joy and meaning. Now, they understand that life's greatest treasures aren't things you can buy or achieve. They are moments, experiences, and the love you share with others. Looking back, they wish they had spent less time chasing what didn't matter and more time cherishing what did. Final thoughts. The wisdom of the elderly is a gift for those of us still on life's journey. By learning from their regrets, we can focus on what truly matters: love, health, personal growth, and meaningful connections. Remember, it's never too late to change the course of your life. Every moment offers a new chance to prioritize what's truly important and live without regret. Embrace today and make the most of every precious moment you have. Future self will thank you. These lessons are meant to inspire you to live fully and authentically. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned and plan to apply in your own life. Let's support each other on this journey toward embracing these truths. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and here's to living life on your own terms.